One of the challenges with staying or living in a small space like this is that you need to find ways to expand that living space sometimes. And one of the main ways people do it with this type of vehicle is with an awning. So we're going to put one on over at Main Line Overland right now.
We'll kick this one off by getting the exact measurement and layout of the awning itself, measuring with the end caps and all of that sort of stuff to make sure we have the correct dimensions for mounting. From there, we'll go ahead and get out the brackets, the mounting hardware, and the tools to actually use the awning. It comes with 3 of these brackets plus the hardware to go ahead and mount it to the roof rack. Now, because my van has a custom roof rack from Tannerrack, this is going to need to be a little bit different of a setup. And there you can see those are going to go up on the rack itself. Here, Pat is taking some measurements and trying to do, as we call it, gazintas, to try to figure out exactly how this is going to work, because you're intended to attach the bracket to the bottom side of the awning itself, which is nearly impossible with it being set into the rack as it is on my van. Again, measuring to make sure we've got everything together and trying to figure out a plan for how we are going to make this work.
All right, so we are going to try something kind of different, right, Pat, with how we're mounting this?
Generally speaking, when we usually mount these, you mount these brackets directly to the rack that we, the Alvan rack or whatever we have.
Yeah, whatever company.
Then you rock the awning onto it because you have a lock here, and then you have 2 holes that you're going to drill into the bottom of the awning and rivet so it locks it into place.
Okay.
But basically the way the Tannerrack is designed is this is going to all have to be assembled onto the awning before we mount this. So we're going to have to game out exactly where these are going to sit on the awning and the rack itself, so we can drill these carriage bolts which will pass through the rack and kind of put it on as a whole assembly built out already instead of building out.
So instead of mounting these on the rack itself, we're going to mount those to the awning and then
the whole assembly on. Yeah. So a little different, but you know, a lot of gazintas, but we'll manage.
As always.
And that begins our journey of doing a lot of measuring to know exactly where these brackets are not only going to fall on the backside of the awning itself, but also a coordinating spot on the roof rack to make sure that we're not drilling holes in the wrong spot or mounting it weird. Essentially, everything else is going to be located off of this first bracket. So you can see Pat is making sure he's being meticulous about locating this on the rack and making sure that we put it in the right spot so that everything else will fall in place based on measurements away from that first bracket. Once we've got that first bracket dialed in, we're going to go ahead and measure on the awning itself, get everything marked out, and then start making coordinating marks on the roof rack itself so that we can drill holes and get this whole assembly put together and in the right spots. Once we're confident we know exactly where things are going to go, it's time to put some more holes in the roof rack. Once the holes are sorted out, it's time to sort out the hardware. This is actually designed to go through round tubing, so we don't need all this length, and we're going to trim this mounting hardware. Once the hardware is trimmed up, it's time to start making the final assembly where we permanently attach the brackets to the backside of the awning. I've never really shown this part of the shop before, but this is part of what makes Pat and the guys at Mainline so capable. They've got hardware for days so that they can make all kinds of different aftermarket things work together by using the right hardware. And in situations like this, we're going to go ahead and put that hardware to use. Pat is drilling holes in what will be the bottom side of the awning very carefully so that he doesn't punch through and damage things internally. And this is where the rivets will be used to permanently attach those brackets and create the final assembly of the awning, which will go up on the rack. And that brings us to the actual mounting of this. Now, we've recruited Justin and Connor, some of the other guys, and they are going to help us get this up on the van and mounted in the correct spot. Pat's going to go ahead and get this thing secured to the rack. Just make sure everything is nice and tight because we don't want that falling off at all. And then it's the world's most satisfying peel. I'll just let you soak this in. It's then, of course, time for a demo. Pat is going to unwind this and kind of show me how it works, what you got to do. I've never had an awning before, so this was a little bit of learning for me. And as I'm sure you may have guessed, with a 13-foot long awning, it's absolutely massive. I cannot be happier with how this thing is panning out. Now, as you may see here, there's a little bit of a point in there because the door is open. The awning is actually contacting the top of the slider door. So I need to be aware that when I'm putting it away, I need to close that door to make sure nothing gets scratched or damaged. But overall, this thing is super cool, and that was not that crazy of an install.
It's definitely getting some used to in terms of putting the awning in and out, because I've never done it before, and it's a little bit awkward in some ways. And also, because it's so big, it sort of droops as it comes out, so that's something that I need to be aware of when I'm setting it up. I also don't know, they make mounts for the legs to attach to the vehicle instead of landing on the ground. I don't know if I want to use those just yet. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. But all in all, the van living space is extended. I now have cover for outside when I'm at the range or when I'm out camping or whatever kind of situation like that, maybe at an event. And to me, that's a wonderful thing. So as always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, you got a comment, leave it down below. Hit that like button. It actually does help. I would really appreciate it if you got subscribed as well. And as always, thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon.